Chapter 3. I paused outside the house. Even though it was the same house, it was interesting to compare how it had morphed over half a century. The addition wasn't there. That was put on to make a workroom. The old windows, paths, trees, the roof in tiles, not solar panel sheeting that became nearly mandatory in my time. It's like investigating peeling wallpaper and being surprised and intrigued in how the different patterns would have impinged on how people lived, at least experienced life. Giving a greater sense of the past that was just sitting there, hidden all those years. I rang the small bell, and again it was opened by our mother. She was one of those women who had been held back from her potential, coming off the farm. There was not that expectation of achieving greatness, although I think she would easily have made a greater success in life, given more education, circumstances and availability of opportunity. Potential, especially from my perspective, is so wasted when it's not taken seriously. This is what I played up to her, getting her on board and allowing her to give her son the opportunity and the expectation of doing some wonderful things. Emma, you're looking well. I hope you don't mind, but I have a present for your son. It's just an old keyboard that I don't use, and I think it could open up some projects for him. In actual fact, I had just bought it in a second-hand dealer on Reeves Street, as not to bring in any advanced tech.
That's fine. I hope he shows his appreciation. It's not really his strong point.
If he uses it, that'll be enough for me. It's good to see his fresh mind exploring stuff. Just talking to her was such a thrill, and would have loved to spend the day with her, but went up to the studio. Hi Leon, how's it going? Fine, thanks, though school seems to be getting harder to survive and weaker in learning. These footy guys give me a hard time because I'm smarter or something. That seems a shame, but I hear it happens a lot. You would think that being smarter is worthwhile, but it's so satisfying for them to celebrate because it doesn't take much brain power and allows them some satisfaction. There might be a satisfaction there, but let's consider it in a design way. Maybe we can get closer to the truth. Design for me is a way of life. It's just how I am, and I see that can be applied to every situation and should be. So let's apply a process that's called design thinking to your bully situation. Design thinking is a framework to think about ideas and processes of finding solutions. It's non-linear, iterative process to get you to build an understanding of the situation and people involved, to challenge your assumptions by breaking it all down. I know people love to quote and misquote Einstein, but he did say that if I had an hour to solve a problem, I would spend 55 minutes thinking about the problem and 5 minutes thinking about the solution. I'm not sure if you can see this, but people are very bad at this process and run straight into possible solutions, which often are not really fixing the problem or addressing the issues. So, as an experiment, let's explore this problem and the process. There are 5 steps: empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. Now, what do you know about the boys that harass you? Well, it's really one boy, Brett, and his mates just follow along. So how do you empathise with Brett's situation? What do you know about him? Well, he's big. Yes, go deeper. He and his mates don't do well at schoolwork. Do you consider them unintelligent or unfocused? Hard to tell. They have fallen behind somehow, but probably because of their behaviour and attitude. They are, in the main, bigger than other kids, and maybe they stand out, and people expect that they should also be intelligent because they're more developed physically and expect mental abilities as well. That might be a point of embarrassment for them. I think Brett's parents are divorced, so very little support and emotional longing for stability or being a part of something bigger. They play football. They feed their self-esteem by being the thing that they are good at. How does he get on with the other students and teachers? He stays in his little group of thugs and gets into trouble. They never concentrate. Maybe they act out to disguise their lack of comprehension. Maybe they don't like to ask for help because it shows a weakness. Which teachers and topics does he have most trouble? They clash a lot with the maths teacher a fair bit. So, we'll go fairly quickly through this. So, define is the next step. They pick on me and I'd love it to stop. You want to change your relationship with them. The boys are uncomfortable as they're falling behind in some class topics, and they act out and probably feel isolated from the class. Sometimes they steal my lunch and punch me in the arm and push me into other people, especially girls, to embarrass me. He seems especially angry when I do well or receive praise from a teacher. I have no interaction with him in class, and so we only interact bully and victim. So define. So build on what we've explored to define the problem. Brett and his friends make me feel uncomfortable. They themselves probably feel certain levels of discomfort in relationships and situations. They get satisfaction about knowing that they are a group and get strength from that support. Their bullying and acting out in class has led to poor academic achievement. That might be because they're not smart or that they have missed some understanding and have fallen behind. They probably don't feel that comfortable asking for help from teachers who they have harassed over the years. Well, now we can continue with this process and investigate and analyse it much deeper, but we will, for this exploration, go on, knowing we can come back and go over this part again. So ideate. I could work out and become much more physically strong, but that's not going to happen. Don't knock down your ideas at this stage, but we could put that in the long-term idea. You could befriend another big boy that acts like your bodyguard. You could talk to the maths teacher and try to encourage him or her to try different strategies to get the boys engaged. I could tutor him myself, though at this stage it sounds very unsatisfactory. I could go to a different school, but that would mean lots more tension, or homeschool but my mum goes to work. You could work on ways to get the boys to interact with school more. So, prototype. This design thinking is not about a product, as I normally apply it, but it's about a situation, so we have to develop plans or scenarios. Well, I could talk to the teacher and ask to try different strategies, though I would have to be in a way that avoids saying he's a bad teacher. It would have to be done in a way that he doesn't feel like I'm labeling him dumb. Maybe if the teacher makes maths partners, the teacher might be seen as the investigator and avoid the uncomfortable situation of me being the tutor. Just say he gets better at calculus. Is it going to stop him annoying me? If he finds a way to feel better about himself, he could apply it to other areas, and if you were a part of the solution, it could well help your situation. I think there's a learning support person in the school, but it normally works for disabled kids or immigrants who struggle with speaking the language. Maybe that's an option. There could be activities at school that he will engage them outside the curriculum and the football and change their relationship to school. I could leave the school and go to another one, though longer travel times, new problems, and the dancer that I know would not be at that school. So let's go back to Define, remembering that it's not a linear process. It doesn't feel like he fits into the school because he's fallen behind and he's not good at asking questions or asking for help. If nothing is done, he will continue to act out his frustrations on brainy kids like me to show that he has something over us. It gives him some standing. So let's ideate again. Leon sits with a look on his face that opens up some decisions. If he could feel supported or more connected to the school, he might change his whole attitude to learning. The music for Go Big could be developed to include him in some sort of performance. You could use his strength and his connections with the football team to make something that brings the whole class together. Wow, that sounds like a plan, although Go Big is in its infancy, and I'm not that comfortable that I want to expose myself to that level of scrutiny on my first piece. It will give you a goal to push you. You are a pushy mentor. So testing now. Testing, this is up to you. Let's just see where Go Big is up to and see how it can be part of a solution. The music is getting complex and a bit lost, but it has been fun. Give me a listen. The music filled the room with bass and jangles, which had a uniqueness that was surprising. Wow, that's really original. You need to keep that spark, but how would you see it being stronger? With a furrowed brow, he looked into the hills and said, I think it needs to be simpler. And how would you achieve that? Well, this section gets muddled. It seems like a complex maths problem that's so exciting to me, but daunting to everybody else. First of all, never restrict projects based on what others will think. But that being said, there is a lot happening, and consider if you stay in the main on the beat or on the half note, which is quarters and eighth notes, it allows the rhythm to be up and down beats. These are sort of rules, ones that are ripe for breaking, but when you're looking to simplify, it's a good place to investigate. It does bring in some sense of structure to be able to move with it. So make a copy of your work. I normally have a trail of title and date files, so I can go back if I want to. It gives me a freedom to experiment without worrying if I'm losing anything. Now, marquee that section, the rectangles of the notes, and then that section hits this quantize filter on eighth notes, and it will organize the notes by moving them to those up and down beats. Not always how you might expect it, but it moves to the closest eighth position, so it can slide up or down where you might be a little out of your intention, but it's interesting. Certainly, sometimes having the groove is not being on the beat, but the music's strong. Have a listen. Well, it fixed this section, but I don't like what it did here. So, undo and just select the section of notes and quantize that part. You could go in physically and move each note that is not on the grid and listen to the groove, but this is a nice way to get a feel, though it takes a lot of nuance. or sense of humanity, a bit of auto-tuning sort of. Often in design you have goals or things to compare success to. So let's listen to something else this reminds me of. It's a band called Mute, a German techno marching band. You don't have to copy any of it specifically, but just consider how it might be similar in some ways and how you can use the comparison to find new pathways to your music. The dynamics, the soft and the pumped, the arrangement of the instruments to paint different colours, or the use of short stabs to really establish the rhythms. What about this music could you strive to fix what you have? I think it's the variation of pumped and quiet, as well as the drop that brings in the heavy beat from that quiet marimba section. This really gets you going as they turn it up because you've had that rest. Nice reflection. This technique is to get you to push yourself outside your comfort zone. Your work has real potential as it is, but you have to strive way out. I have big dreams for your work. How did you get that part in? I played with that typing piano. Nice work. I go over to the doorway and bring the keyboard. Maybe you should try this keyboard. It could make it a bit easier. You seem to have a knack for it. Wow, thanks. I think this could open up something for me. So the piano in my lounge must have been because Leon got into music, possibly from the introduction last week. What I do changed my life. I'm a little worried how it affects others, and I wonder how far the waves of change will run. So, to go back to your bully solution, how could Brett and his followers be incorporated in the live performance of this? Well, they aren't musicians. Sure, but if they could be incorporated in a way that they felt comfortable, it would give you some shared connection. So just consider ways they could join in. Well, they would have to stay in character and not be stretched too much by something that would be embarrassing to them. And still, people see them as football guys and not some artsy guys. There are no vocals in there, but maybe they could sing or yell the words "Go Big" along with the music. Yeah. So over the week, this point might influence you and incorporate a chorus. I'm still not sure about the performance myself, but I will let the idea play in my mind as I develop it. Great. That's the way. So did you keep up with the sunrise data? Yeah, I got a few more days. A few were cloudy, which is a shame. So if you take the data you have, by seeing the degree of movement from the days you have, you could get an understanding of how it's going. Don't get too predictive and check from the days, especially the ones that you have in sequence. I'm glad you've kept it up. Get as much data as you can for one more week, and next week we will confidently gauge the ones in between. I will have a special application of the data.